It's Tuesday, March 9th, and this is the first period class recording. Just a few things, just want to make sure everybody is aware. We do have a new Google Doc agenda here in the announcements, as well as linked here as our first page in our new module for this week. So if we look at the Google Doc agenda, I'm going to do my best to keep this updated. It's like whenever I update the daily page, I'll change this date as well so that it'll always appear on your calendar. So today we started Delta Math and CUDA-Works, which there is going to be an additional assignment in CUDA-Works specifically for identifying the discriminant, which I think I'll have to check on that. I think it's just scheduled to show up tomorrow. Like I still have, it's assigned, it's just not open until tomorrow because I wanted us to do one thing at a time. So we have, yesterday we should have been working on Quizlet Learn for the quadratic formula terms. So we are going to play a live game in class here in a little bit. And like I said, we're working on Delta Math or CUDA-Works. We are going to review the lesson 2.9 notes in class. And this is being weird. So we're going to review these notes and the lesson page as well. But the first thing we're going to do is play a live game once this finishes loading. So I'm going to pause the video here and I'll resume after we finish playing. All right, so we played a game of Quizlet live. We listened to this awesome song, Do the Quad Solve. We review factoring, completing the square, and quadratic formula in that video. And it's kind of catchy. So you can feel free to look that up, and I will more than likely be torturing you guys with that song for the foreseeable future. So that being said, we need to make sure that we watch the Monday Ed Puzzle. Even if you use the file to copy your notes, you need to watch the video to earn assignment credit. There's no sound. There are a couple of questions. So we need to do that. Make sure that you get that done. And we have Delta Math due tomorrow, CUDA due Friday. So this is the one that is set to open tomorrow. So this is specifically a Wednesday through Friday assignment. It is not available yet. It has not shown up in CUDA-Works yet. It is due to show up, and I don't know why it said PM. I meant to change that to AM. Let me do that right now before I forget. Put that up here. And I want you guys to, this is not the right page. This is the right page. This is the right page. So if we're here, I just instructed everybody to go through and write down what A, B, and C are for each of these. So let's go full screen here. So for number 1, A equals 1, B equals 7, C is going to equal negative 18 because this has to be equal to 0. So I have to subtract 18 to get this equal to 0 so I can have all of my terms on one side. At the top of this page, write the quadratic formula. Opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So write that at the top of your paper. Some of you guys might want to have your journals out if we're not going to be able to fit all of this. So just seeing, if we didn't write A, B, and C going across like I just did, we might need to do that because we're going to need all of the space to write this in here. So if we know that we're not going to have enough space, let's go ahead and just write it on a separate sheet of paper. It's fine if you do all of your work for this online paper and submit those images instead of the actual practice page. So if we are going to be using our own paper for these, let's go ahead and get that out now. And make sure that you still title your page practice 2-9, and that we number each of our problems. So if you're doing this on your own paper, make sure that you circle the number of the problem and put your final answer in a box. So once we set this up, opposite of B is -7, plus or minus the square root of B squared, 7 squared, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A. So that's the next thing I want us to do. Just go through and fill in where A, B, and C go. So here, if I'm writing this in standard form, x squared minus 8x plus 16, A is 1, B is -8, C is 16. So take a moment and fill in what the quadratic formula should look like for 2 and 3, and then we'll go over those. So if we're looking at number 2, I got all this different stuff up here all in the way. So if we're looking at number 2, there's something we should notice. We should notice that number 2 is a perfect square trinomial. Make sure you write that down. Trinomial. Because I have 16, which is a perfect square, and 8, which is twice the square root of 16. That's kind of a weird explanation. So if we know 16 is a perfect square, the square root of 16 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. That's how I know this is a perfect square trinomial. Because, and I'm going to come off to the side here. You guys don't have to write this part down. I just want to make sure that we understand this. Because if I know that x minus 4 quantity squared is saying x minus 4 times itself, then I should notice that I get x squared minus 8x plus 16 every single time. Because I'm going to have 2 minus 4x to give me 8. Does that make sense? So we definitely 100% need to recognize that pattern, because something special is going to happen when I set up this quadratic. So when we set this up, opposite of B is +8 plus or minus the square root of B squared. So even if this is negative, -8 squared is still positive. So that's going to be 64 minus 4. If A is 1, it's redundant to write anything times 1. So if A is 1, we don't need to necessarily write that. If it helps you to write it and know that that's still times A times C, by all means, leave it. But just for me, for sake of space on the screen here, we're going to try and consolidate this. All over 2. 2 times 1 is still 2. So then, for example, 3, I would need to subtract 15 to get this equal to 0. So A equals 4, B equals 4, but C equals -15. This is our first example where A does not equal 1. So here I'm going to have opposite of B is -4 plus or minus the square root of B squared is 16 minus 4 times A is 4 times C is -15 all over 2 times A is 4. Everybody get that? Got that down? Okay. So if we have this down, we can put that whole entire thing in Desmos if we do it correctly. The whole entire thing. So everybody open Desmos. Now it has to be done a particular way. And if we don't do it exactly right, it's not going to give us the right answer. So once I show you how to do it with the entire thing in Desmos, we can decide from there if it's going to be in our better interest to do it piece by piece or if we can handle doing it all at once. So we're going to open, and we can slide this over just a smidge. We're going to open Desmos. And we don't really need the graphing calculator. Let's see. Let's use the scientific way, because we're not really looking at the graph. So first thing is realizing that this is a fraction. So we're going to make a fraction. So I need everybody looking at the scientific calculator. Give me thumbs up if we're looking at the Desmos scientific calculator. All right. I'll give us a second to get there. So we're starting with a fraction, and the only thing that Desmos isn't going to do for us is give us both answers. So we're going to have to do plus, and then we're going to have to do minus. So for this first one, we've got -7 plus the square root, which square root is right here, or if we type SQRT and not in all caps, it will give us the square root, SQRT, square root. Shortcut there. And if we don't know what 7 squared is, we can type that in, but we should know that's 49 minus 4 times -18. Times 1 is redundant. We don't need to put that in. All over. And we get 2 equals 2. So that's that. And then now, so write down x equals 2. We've got 2 answers though, right? So x is going to equal 2. And we come over here. Let's see. It doesn't like it when I'm in tablet mode. So I know the video is going to have a whole bunch of crazy noises for me flipping this computer back and forth. But if we go up here, change the plus to minus. And then we get our other answer, -9. So then we get -9. Now, understand that when we're looking at this, and we're going to come off to the far side here, because I have x squared plus 7x minus 18. X squared plus 7x minus 18. We could have very easily factored this. If we're trying to find numbers that multiply to -18 and add to +7, numbers are 9 and -2. So I get x plus 9, x minus 2 equal to 0. Zero product property tells me to set both of these equal to 0. So I get x equals -9 and +2. So we need to be able to realize that whenever I get 2 whole number answers like that, that means that that quadratic was factorable. But at the end of the day, if we are not going to remember how to factor, but we can remember the quadratic formula, then we can solve any quadratic. So if we're struggling with factoring, or when factoring when a isn't equal to 1, or completing the square, all of that, when it comes to solving or finding the value of x, if we can remember the quadratic formula, then we're going to be in good shape. So everybody take a second and do number 2. When you get your final answer, show me on your whiteboard. Alrighty, guys. So when we put this in, we should get 4. We should get 4. So again, make sure we understand, even if b is negative, b squared will never, ever, 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 ever be negative, because a negative times a negative makes a positive, right? So that's never, ever going to be negative. And if I go over here and I change this to minus, I get the same thing. And I want to show you why. So the reason why, we go back and delete all of that, that equals 0 because 4 times 16 is 64. 64 minus 64 is 0. So when my discriminant, the value under the square root, is equal to 0, that means I'm going to have one solution. So here for number 2, x equals 4. Type in number 3 with me. We're starting with a fraction, -4 plus the square root of 16 minus 4 times 4, oops, wrong parentheses, times -15 over 8. So we should get x equals 1.5. And now go back and change the plus to minus. And we get -2.5. So there will be times when you will be required to give your answer as a simplified square root. You will not always write these as decimals. You will not always write these as decimals. So for number 4, we are going to do this algebraically. So number 4, everybody work out this whole problem on your whiteboard from beginning to end. A equals 1, B equals -4, C equals -7. So we're not using Desmos for this. So when I say we're not using Desmos for this, I'm saying we're not going to put the entire equation into Desmos. You can do your multiplication and addition if we need to in Desmos. Oh, what did I say? That didn't look right for a second. So we are going to have to simplify this square root. So if I have C is -7, so what should I get -28? C is -7. I want you guys to simplify this. This will be our last example. We can finish it. So we should end up with a perfect square factor. It needs to be fully simplified. 16 plus 28 is Close. Okay, that's the right step, but how can I simplify 44? If you think about simplifying square roots. So all of what you have so far is right. I know we're winding down here. All right, if I haven't seen your board yet, let me see what we've got so far. It's okay if we're not done. So C is -7. Good. So Mackenzie, well, don't forget all over 2A on the bottom. So everything you have there is correct. We just need all over 2A. Awesome, Lorelai. So we have one more step. So our last step is to simplify all of the numbers not under the radical. So when I multiply this, the first thing we need to make sure that we do correctly is that -4 times -7 is +28. So I'm going to end up adding 16 plus 28 to give me 44. 44 has a perfect square factor of 4, which leaves me with, oh, that's wrong, 2 root 11. Okay, that explains that. So here I had 4 times 11. The square root of 4 is 2. Okay, wait, hold on. Let's go back. So this is 2 root 11, which is why that's 1. Okay. I was looking at my notes and I was trying to figure out where that other 2 went. So yeah, this is just going to be 2 plus or minus the square root of 11 because 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. Does that make sense? Okay, so everybody needs to make sure they get these examples written down. I'm going to create an Edpuzzle video this afternoon guiding you through some of these, and you guys will need to make sure we watch that video, which will be on the Wednesday page, and make sure that we get this practice page completed. So really quickly in Canvas, you guys can pack up. So in Canvas, make sure we're aware on our calendar, due tomorrow, Delta Math, Edpuzzle, and CUDA is due Friday. There are many assessment corrections. Use the guide to rework all of your missed questions. Submit an image of your work here to earn back half credit for each question. For additional help, attend 5th period Tuesday or Thursday. Help is also available in the library. I don't know as much about what's going on in the library, but they're down there.